Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Ladies and gentlemen, we must not forget, and those of us that don't know must understand why it is that the world is being pushed into a centrally banked digital currency. BIS, in other words, the Bank for International Settlements, to use artificial intelligence to monitor global bank transactions for money laundering. It's always for your safety. Before I continue, I want to share with you a 56-second clip where the BIS tells you exactly why it is that they want to have a global centrally banked digital currency, ladies and gentlemen. Listen to this.
All our analysis on CBDC, in particular for the use of general use, we tend to establish the equivalence with cash. And there is a huge difference there.
So what he's saying here so far is that the perspective that these top bankers have with a CBDC and in comparison to the use of cash, they think that it's kind of like the same thing. But it's not the same thing. This guy here is telling us plain out exactly what it is that a CBDC is in contrast with cash, ladies and gentlemen. So here he just says, hey, it's not the same thing, so don't think that it is.
For example, in cash, we don't know, for example, who's using a $100 bill today. We don't know who is using a 1,000 peso bill today. A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability.
Two key things. With the use of a CBDC, when there's no cash available, central banks will have total control on how that central bank liability, i.e. CBDC, because a CBDC will be a central bank liability because they will be the ones issuing the actual digital money. So they will have complete control over how that digital money is used, ladies and gentlemen. This has not been played on mainstream media. I haven't seen it. Well, I don't watch mainstream media, but I'm very certain that it hasn't, because why would they want you to know what they are up to? This AI stuff that we started the video with, this is not for your protection. This is for their protection. And I know there's only about 15 seconds left on this video, but I have to say that because if not, I forget. Ayn Rand once wrote that when governments write laws to protect themselves from the people, instead of writing laws to protect the people from government, then society is lost. And that is what we are seeing unveil right in front of our eyes here for the last several years. It's all been planned, and there is an end goal. And the end goal does not have your well-being in the front of the line, ladies and gentlemen, as it should be.
And also, we will have the technology to enforce that. Those two issues are extremely important, and that makes a huge difference with respect to what cash is.
And he finishes it off by saying, and we will have the technology to enforce how we want you to spend your money. And this is something that you all have to understand, just in case this is the first time you come across this, ladies and gentlemen, is this. Your money. Key word there, your money. What is your money? What does your money represent? First of all, the money that we think is money nowadays is really just fiat currency. It's a piece of paper with ink on it, and it has the faces of dead presidents on it, with the exception of Benjamin Franklin. He was never a president, but he's still on it. That's not real money, ladies and gentlemen, but let's say that it is. What does it represent? It represents your personal private property rights. Your rights, your private property. It's what it represents. That money represents the private property, the piece of yourself that you had to give away in order. Yeah, go ahead and change it to that instead. That money represents the piece of yourself that you had to give away in order to earn that money, that you can then use to sustain your standard of living to whatever level is appropriate for the amount of money that you earn for your labor. That is what that money represents. Well, now that the central bank actually controls how much your money is worth. You see, the central bank already controls how much your money is worth by them manipulating the interest rates up and down, or creating quantitative easing and bringing inflation up and down. They already control how much your money is worth. So they pretty much control how much your labor is worth, right? When you really think about it and peel back all of the layers of that onion. Well, now the Bank for International Settlements, along with all central banks, because the BIS is pretty much the central bank of all central banks. So pretty much the central banks now, in addition to being able to own how much money is worth, how much your labor is worth, now they want to own your labor by being able to tell you how you can spend it. That's what it comes down to, ladies and gentlemen. And now they have reached, or they're getting to that last part that they need in order to control everyone in the way of which they spend their money. And that is with the technology, just like that person said on that video. A global cashless society is at the door as world bankers forge ahead with plans to centralize all of the world's international and central banks under one umbrella network. This is the plan. You have to understand this, and you must be prepared in order to be able to resist. To make this possible, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, is readying its new global central bank digital currency, or CBDC, and we've talked about this in the past, which we are told will be called the UMU, or Unicoin. The Bank for International Settlements is also doing its part. Isn't that great? They're also doing their parts, ladies and gentlemen, with multiple projects aimed at synchronizing the world's money systems into one single system. Who is going to control that one single system? Well, they found them. Artificial intelligence, ladies and gentlemen. Our lives have come down to being worth what a machine tells us we can and can't do once this is implemented. One BIS project under development is Project Icebreaker, which aims to create a SWIFT-like bottleneck system that will allow global banks to regulate and eventually homogenize all currencies into one world exchange model, one world currency. Don't let them fool you with their fancy words. A one world currency. And behind every currency in the world, ask yourselves, behind every currency in the world, there is what? What is next to every currency in the world? A government. And if the world has a one world currency, you know where we're getting at, ladies and gentlemen. This is not hard to decipher. This is not rocket science. This would allow the globalists full power to cut off any nation or company that does not meet certain ideological and obedience standard. ESG, anyone? I've been talking about ESG for years now, all right? And at first, people were like, you're crazy, man, you're crazy. But now that's everything everyone talks about is ESG. It's in the mainstream media now. They're in the stock market. All of these banks are going with ESG. Anybody know Budweiser? You think that maybe their little ad has something to do, maybe a little bit of something to do with ESG? Absolutely, ladies and gentlemen. So now, even if you're not part of ESG, even if you are a company that is a private company, you still have to do banking. And even if you're not part of ESG because you're like, no, that does not align with my values, they can still cut you off. Why? Because you're not playing the game. All right. And listen to this. This would allow the globalists full power to cut off any nation or company that does not meet certain ideological, all right, a company that does not meet ideological and obedience standards. So it doesn't matter if you make the best tennis shoe in the world. You can make the best tennis shoe in the world that everyone loves, that everyone is willing to part ways with their money to get that tennis shoe. You can make the best one in the world. But if you do not align ideologically, right, and do not obey by their standards, guess what? You're not going to play. You're out of the club. People just don't understand how dangerous this is. And I hope that you're getting it. Then there is Project Aurora, another BIS project that is perhaps worse than Project Icebreaker, the one that we just covered above, in that it utilizes machine learning, AI, or artificial intelligence, as they say, to monitor money flows all over the world in order to identify flag patterns indicative of money laundering. The question is this, ladies and gentlemen. Ask yourself this question. For those of you that are on the line, they're like, hey, this might be a good thing. You know, it will catch bad people. It'll catch bad guys from moving money around that they earned illegally, right? Do you think that this AI will be programmed to be able to catch this money laundering for anyone and everyone in the world? Because people will say, well, I'm not doing anything wrong, right? But do you think that it will be targeted to everyone in the world? Or do you think that there may be some certain politicians or maybe some certain really high level executives that maybe have done bad things with their money? Do you think they will be targeted? Or do you think that the AI will be programmed to only target certain people? Right, ladies and gentlemen? Those are the questions that we need to be asking ourselves before we go along just to get along with these programs that they have. It is never, ladies and gentlemen, for your own good. You know what is for your own good? What you decide is for your own good, because you live with the consequences of those decisions that you make. That's for your own good, ladies and gentlemen. What these big shots here who want to own and govern the world, it's what they come out with. It's not for our own good. It's for what they think. They want to play God, is what it is. And every time that that's happened throughout history, where a select few want to control the majority or all, it always ends up turning bad. For who? A lot of times not even for the select few, but for the majority, for the people that they're saying to themselves they're trying to help. According to the BIS, the purpose of the AI-driven spying and surveillance system is to look for money laundering structures protected by money mules. All right. Okay. In order for it to be able to monitor all global financial transactions in real time, though, corporate banks and governments will need to allow the system to invade people's private bank accounts. And it's already happening. I mean, didn't the Supreme Court, ladies and gentlemen, the Supreme Court, the one that's supposed to be, yes, it's constitutional, or no, it's not constitutional, pretty much gave away our Fourth Amendment right as far as it comes to banking privacy. So they say that if I'm being investigated for something, because I'm a bad guy, right? If I'm being investigated for something and I know 50 people, then those 50 people that have a bank account, they can be investigated as well. They can look into their banks as well. So pretty much the Supreme Court gave the authorities pretty much a blanket overview over everyone's private bank accounts. Because all they need, there's 6 degrees of separation, right? So I know 6 people that they know 6 people each, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And by that time, we know the entire world, right? We're attached by 6 degrees of separation. So pretty much they gave them blanket authority to be able to spy into everyone's private banking accounts. With Project Aurora in place, the BIS and its partners would have instant access to anyone's bank account anywhere in the world, allowing the globalists to target offenders with impunity once identified by the AI robots. So a machine snitches on you, and then a person or two at the top decides whether your life becomes demonetized, whether you become erased from society. Much like the drug war was used as a rationale in the US and Europe to give governments unfettered access to citizens' finances, a power which has since been abused in a number of ways, Aurora relies on the boogeyman of money laundering to give governments and global banks vast surveillance powers. And ladies and gentlemen, it's always for your protection. The project's focus on AI is represented or is presented as if this will protect individual privacy. But all AI programs serve their makers. There you go. That's what we talked about before. Who's going to program them? Whoever controls the AI also controls the AI targets. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you got something out of this. And that's why we have to prepare. I know AP's always, we got to prepare. You got to prepare. That's how you resist. You have to prepare. But it's true. It's how we have to prepare. Because one day, ladies and gentlemen, if this does make it through, if this does become reality, which I think that it will, because we're going to face several years of hardship before things turn around in the favor of good. By the time that evil is finally beaten down and good wins, we will face several years of hardship. And these things will come to be, in my opinion. right? So we have to understand this, that the best way to resist this is to prepare, because one day, if you fall victim to this AI and this globalist agenda and they want to demonetize your life, wouldn't it be nice to know that, hey, even though I can't go to the store and get this, or even though I can't get that because I just can't interact in society with the money that they've made us use, wouldn't it be nice to know that you have a year's supply of food so that you can make a plan, so that you can have time to think as to what you're going to do, as to what your plan will be in order to continue to feed your family, instead of having to give in right away because you're not prepared. I guess it's up to you. Having said that, I hope that you have a great day. God bless every one of you. God bless America. Keep fighting, ladies and gentlemen. We will win this in the end. I'm Alaska Prepper. I'm out.